అర్బన్ శానిటేషన్ అండ్ వేస్ట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ అనే అంశం పైన ఆన్లైన్ విధానమున నిర్వహించబడుతున్నటువంటి ఈ సర్టిఫికెట్ కార్యక్రమాన్ని ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం తరపు నుండి కమిషనరేట్ ఆఫ్ గ్రామ వార్డ్ వాలంటీర్స్, గ్రామ వార్డ్ సెక్రటేరియట్స్ వారి విజ్ఞప్తి మేరకు అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటివ్ స్టాఫ్ కాలేజ్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా వారి సెంటర్ ఫర్ అర్బన్ గవర్నెన్స్, ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ అండ్ ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ డెవలప్మెంట్ హైదరాబాద్ వారు రూపొందించారు.
Identify stakeholders. Before we start the discussion on what is this process all about, let us first revisit the question, who are these stakeholders? A stakeholder is an individual, group, or organization who may have impact on the project or be impacted by the project. Now, let us look at what is this process, Identify Stakeholders, is all about. Is it simply listing the names of the stakeholders? Yes, this process helps to list the stakeholders as a first step, however, it does not stop there. In a typical project, you may have a long list of stakeholders, and it is very difficult to give equal attention to all of them. Therefore, as a second step, you should collect information about them, such as their interest in the project, their influence, their involvement, and potential impact that they can have on the project's success. In the third step, you should classify or categorize the stakeholders into the groups, based on the information you collected. This classification would tell you which groups of stakeholders should be focused and engaged more closely. In summary, this process is performed not only for listing down the stakeholders, but also for classifying them to have right focus for the stakeholder engagement.
When we respond to emergencies, we must remember that people affected by crises have capacity and can develop their own solutions. Honest dialogue and open communication with communities can make all the difference, particularly when it comes to water, sanitation, and hygiene. This does not mean parachuting in with all the solutions, but rather taking the time to understand a community. Who are the individual community members? What are their unique needs and preferences? Communities are diverse. They come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes time is limited and it may seem far too chaotic to make space to listen to and interact with people who are affected by crisis. The pressure to provide immediate assistance is high. So it is sometimes easier to rush in, talk at people, and give instructions. But listening and talking to the community is always possible, even when time is short. Opportunities to communicate and engage in honest dialogue are always there. It's just a question of seeking them out. When time is short, it may seem easier to talk to those that are visible or who come forward with ideas. But we must talk and listen to all groups, especially the more vulnerable members of a community who are often the most at risk of disease. Our job as aid workers in water, sanitation, and hygiene is to identify behaviors and practices that put people at risk and may increase their vulnerability to disease outbreaks. Our responsibility is to then support and help people find their own solutions. Communities do have capacity and motivation to find their own solutions and to make changes. Sometimes it may simply be that they are not aware of all the options or they have become stuck in unhelpful routines. It's not about telling people what to do and expecting magical changes. It's about understanding why they behave as they do, why they prefer certain things over others, how their culture affects their behavior. Most of all, we must remember that perfect is not possible. Lengthy and complex studies can be a waste of time, especially when community needs are urgent and need our attention. The most important thing is to be flexible, to listen, then think, then act. Don't aim for perfect, aim for good enough. Good and effective community engagement in WASH is not rocket science. Consult with communities, modify your program, and consult again. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
సర్వీసెస్ను తీసుకొని ఆ యొక్క సర్వీసెస్ చాలా చక్కగా చాలా స్మూత్గా వార్డు స్థాయిలో అమలు చేయడానికి వీరి యొక్క భాగస్వామ్యంతో పాటుగా కావలసినటువంటి సలహాలు కూడా ఇవ్వవలసినటువంటి అవసరము ఉన్నదన్నమాట. ఇంకా ఎన్జిఓస్ విషయంలోకి మనం వచ్చినట్టయితే వాళ్ళ రోల్ కూడా చాలా చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ అన్నమాట. ముఖ్యంగా వాళ్ళు ఈ అంశానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి పనులలో కొంత సమయాన్ని మాటలను సలహాలను ఇవ్వగలిగే వారిని ఒక వర్గంగా, స్వయంగా మనతో పాటు కూర్చొని ప్లానింగ్, డిజైనింగ్, ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ అంశాల్లో సహాయం చేసే వాళ్ళని ఒక వర్గంగా, అదేవిధంగా సర్వీసెస్ను అందించే వాళ్ళని మరొక వర్గంగా కేటగిరైజేషన్ చేసి ఆ కేటగిరీలలో వాళ్ళ సలహాలకు, వాళ్ళ యొక్క సూచనలకు మనం ప్రాధాన్యతను ఇచ్చినట్లయితే ఈ రంగ సేవ కోసము అనుసంధానం చేస్తే ఖచ్చితత్వంతో ఆ సేవలు లభిస్తాయని మనం అర్థం చేసుకుంటాము. ఆ విధంగా అక్కడ మనం ప్రణాళికను చేయాల్సినటువంటి అవసరం ఉందన్నమాట. ఇక తరువాతది సెట్ పర్పస్. ఒకసారి స్టేక్ హోల్డర్ను మనము ఎంగేజ్ చేస్తున్నట్లయితే వారికి మనము ఒక పర్పస్ ను, ఒక గోల్ నంటూ ఏర్పాటు చేయాలన్నమాట. వారు ఏ అంశం మీద పనిచేయాలి, ఆ విధంగా పనిచేస్తూ ఏ స్థానాన్ని, ఏ విజయాన్ని వాళ్ళు సాధించాలి అనేది మనము ముందుగానే గుర్తించి వాళ్లకు తెలియపరచాలి. మరి ఈ విధంగా ఈ శానిటేషన్ అంశాల్లో ఏ విధంగా సిటిజన్స్ ను మనము స్టేక్ హోల్డర్స్ గా ఎంగేజ్ చేసినట్లయితే అది ఒక విజయానికి దారి తీస్తుందో ఈ చిన్న వీడియో ద్వారా మనము ఒక అవగాహనను తెచ్చుకుందాం.
Warangal is a thriving metropolis known for its history, culture, and people. But like any growing city, Warangal has pressing sanitation problems.
We face huge challenges in sanitation, mainly because the growth of population have been much more than the infrastructure growth in the cities.
The Administrative Staff College of India is a research and training organization that has partnered with the Greater Warangal Municipal Corporation to make Warangal a model sanitation city. Together, they knew from the start its citizens were key to its success.
The critical building block is engaging citizens, their ownership, their participation and dialogue for sustainable sanitation provision.
Warangal's first step was to crowdsource the sanitation identity for the city using technology.
So we had an initiative called Swachh Warangal, and we created 3 logos and asked the citizens to vote for the logo of their choice. So we used mobile apps, we used web-based voting, we used missed call as a system for registering votes, and we just had about a week's time, and we were heartened to see that we got almost 1 lakh responses.
The city chose the Palapitta bird famous in Warangal. From this point on, it became the face of sanitation for the city. Whether it was new public toilets or platforms such as the S-Line, a helpline to assist citizens with queries on sanitation and to access subsidies to build toilets at home, this identity called out and connected to citizens.
S-Line has really made a transformative change in the way the toilets are made available to the citizens of Warangal. After establishing the S-Line, the demand was explosive. We have received more than 10,000 applications through the phone as well as through other means of contact.
Now that the city had its identity, it needed to crowdsource action from citizens.
So, City Sanitation Task Force was constituted, having members from Slum Dweller Residents Association, Traders Association, and different stakeholders who have a stake in the city to reach out to large numbers of citizens to inform and guide the process of sanitation improvement.
అదేవిధంగా డ్వాక్రా సంఘాలను సీనియర్ సిటిజన్స్ను ఈ విధంగా కాకుండా కొన్ని డిపార్ట్మెంట్స్ వారిని కూడా కొద్దిగా పోలీసును కూడా ఇన్వాల్వ్మెంట్ చేసి స్వచ్ఛంద సంస్థలను కూడా ఇన్వాల్వ్మెంట్ చేసి
Here was a citizen movement around sanitation that could spread the pledge of sanitation to each and every citizen, including schools and children.
Children were used as agents of change in this whole campaign. They took this message to their friends, to their peers, so that whoever had no toilet, they carried these applications and shared these applications to these communities. So, to summarize, citizens as agents of change and their active involvement worked very well.
As better sanitation emerged in Warangal, the natural next step was to crowdsource resources from citizens and the corporates for the betterment of the city through the municipal corporation.
One campaign that we brought out was S Bank, which is a soap bank, which is nothing but crowdsourcing resources for buying soaps which can be donated to children in government schools. You would be surprised, we got more than 1 lakh soaps in our kitty in less than a month's time.
Along with citizens, Warangal reached out to corporate social responsibility initiatives to build school toilets, hand washing stations, compost pits, and rainwater harvesting in over 60 schools. With citizens collaborating actively with Warangal on sanitation, there was only one more thing left to gain: ideas.
Very unique initiative has happened. One is to crowdsource not only money but also crowdsource ideas. Not only to give idea but also test out in the city as an incubation ground for ideation. In fact, city has declared a prize money of 100,000 rupees for the best idea.
Through media outreach, 10 sanitation entries have been received and have been tested out for implementation. In Warangal, citizens inform and guide the process of sanitation improvement. They are agents of change. They provide resources and ideas.
Community engagement, without that, it's not possible to work in a city. And actually that's the advantage of working in a city. So many are aware people who have access to technology, who can report back to you quickly.
In fact, we selected Warangal city as a role model in this regard, so that other towns and cities in the state can learn from those initiatives.
For any model sanitation city, citizen engagement is at the core. Warangal has kept its citizens at the forefront. To form its sanitation identity, take action on sanitation, to contribute to their city, and most of all, to shape its future.